An environmental farm plan.
Yes, absolutely essential, and we're going to become compulsory, and within that the overseer system will sit in there as well in terms of nutrient budgeting. But environmental farm planning can be very constructive, very good, and a good exercise to go through. We did a bit of an exercise with Foundation for Arable Research, and I must congratulate them on picking up the gambit and bringing it to arable farmers to draw our attention to the necessity for a plan and to work through it with us. And some of the things they were talking about were things like decide on what risks you have on your farm. You won't have all the risks in the book, but
you'll have a variety of them.
A variety of them, yeah, which will be common to most farms, but some will have slightly different ones. Think about those risks, talk about them, plan around them. Don't overpromise within your plan of what you can do or can't do, because some of it may just take a long time or may be impossible. But certainly there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate those risks, and give yourself time and consider the cost of implementing that plan, because it will take time and it will cost some money, and things have to be purchased, things like good chemical storage, that type of thing.
Because that was been set in place a long time now, hasn't it, chemical storage?
Oh, it has indeed, yes, yes, and not all farmers have come up to the bar, but certainly in terms of segregation and volumes you're allowed and those sorts of things, that's another level again. Yeah.
Soil fertilizer sort of control and flow?
Testing?
Yes,
Rob, on a lot of, or most soil testing that's done for nutrients, it's sampled at 150 millimetres, which is 6 inches, and what the fertiliser reps are telling us that what's down there is quite different to what is halfway down there at 75. So if farmers are concerned at their say Olsen P levels are low, the experts tell us if you sample from half that depth, they will be double that level. So what it's telling me is every time you plough and invert that top fertile area and that anaerobic, aerobic busy area for bacteria and things breaking down, which is within that top warmth and moist area, you invert that upside down and mix it through that soil profile, you're effectively diluting a lot of your goodies. And so perhaps this is why there's a bit of a movement towards sort of minimum tillage or surface tillage away from the plough, because plough can be good for drainage and things like that, but in terms of what it's going to do in terms of your fertility could be quite damaging. So depends where the root zone of your plants is going to settle and where you want that fertiliser, but certainly there's a lot of good stuff near the surface that is not represented in the soil tests.
So there's what we call direct drilling.
Direct drilling, or just a minimum till, just a shallow till. There's been a lot of farmers shallow tilling for a long time, and they're not bringing up clay, they're not bringing up buried seed reserves, weed seed reserves from a way down, which you can do when you tip over with the plough. You can bring up wild oats and wild turnips and things like that have been sitting down there quite nicely for a number of years, and you bring them up into that zone and look out.
You think, where the
Halifax
Halifax did they come from?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I guess really it's just a busy time on the farm at the spring days away.
It's crazy. As soon as things dry out a little bit, everything has to happen at once. Everybody, all the firms want their crops in the ground, about the first week in September. And there's a lot of soil preparation required. Use Roundup instead of diesel if you can, and it should have probably already been on. It does a great job for you, but in terms of rolling, cultivation, drilling, spraying, work with livestock, it's all happening all at once, and it's just fertilising, it's just a mad crazy spraying, it's just all compacted together, and there's only so many hours of daylight.
Yes, there is.
In a day.
Well, do you talk about doing stuff at night so that the birds don't get the worms and things?
That's right. Yes, well, that does work, because when you are cultivating during the day and you see all these seagulls coming, and you think, well, are you only eating the grass grub or and the perina, or are you eating my worms as well?
And you're very protective of your worms.
Well, they're vital, you know. And of course, you know, it's a dangerous occupation, worm farming. We've seen that on...
Oh, well, exactly.
Yes, it's quite dangerous, worm farming.
You're terrible. Yeah. What's happening as far as malting barley is concerned?
Well, Malt Europe have had a growers' meeting, which was a very lively affair, and like so many other pundits out there who are trying to drive the market down, up goes the milk price. And we start saying, well, you know, malting barley is not a commodity, it's not akin to the price of milk, and it's a specialist product. And so the Canterbury farmers let Malt Europe know well and truly their feelings, and a second contract was due to come out, and the feeling was that it was going to be at a lower price than the first one, albeit the first one's $50 a tonne less than last year. But no, Malt Europe have seen sense, brought out that second contract at the same price, although they are still going to exercise a quota on how much they accept versus how much the growers offer. Now, that hasn't been something it was probably brought into place last year, but it hasn't been with us in the past, and those loyal malting growers have always grown everything for the malting company. The malting company have always accepted everything, but it's owned by a French farmers co-op, and we know what French farmers think of New Zealand farmers when it comes to lamb imports into France. So expect no mercy from the French
especially
farmers.
in the World Cup series.
Well,
yeah.
It'd be just nice to hammer them as well. It'd be great.
Peas.
Yeah, peas. Some news from the UK, from the main report. They've got some peas now that are releasing their full protein potential. In peas, there's been a protein inhibitor. They've managed to breed that out of the peas, and so that the full loading of protein is available to animals. And a side effect is that it is actually reducing the amount of nitrogen in the manure, which of course is ammonia, which is all those nasty gases. So there's a good side effect spin-off there too. But so science marches on, things improve incrementally, and through not through GM, through selective breeding, and so there's some good breeding going on out there with seeds and grains and pulses.
What are the chemical companies doing? Because they'll be up to some no good.
Well, I don't know about some no good. They think they create a lot of food for the humans on the earth. But there's a wee bit of concern out there. There's potentially a hostile takeover between Monsanto and Syngenta. Monsanto wanting to get hold of Syngenta, and if that does come together, those chemical companies own a lot of the seed companies, like DuPont own Pioneer, for instance, and so there's a bit of concern in the world that 5 major chemical companies will own most of the world's seed, and that is quite a concern in terms of monopolies being formed and that type of thing. But the seed companies are seeing seed as a transportation mechanism for chemicals, to get those chemicals into the soil, and it's far more environmentally acceptable than, say, aircraft or helicopters flying around spraying chemicals everywhere. So they see seed as the transportation mechanism, and so that's the interest, and they can do so many things with seeds. It's just amazing what they can do with seed now, and apart from seed coating.
Apart from seed coating. Dennis, thank you very much indeed.